Nate Govan here for the Govan Media Group. Man, do we have a special interview today. If you see this group here, they are what we're going to call you guys academic athletes, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit. So today we have a group who has won and let me get it right, the Academic World Quest organized by the Greater Reading World Affairs Council. A lot of you may not know what that is, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this today, to not only shed light on the talented and brilliant youth that Exeter has to offer, but also the other academic sports, is what we'll call it, that people just don't know about, and it deserves the press and the publicity. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to introduce everybody, and then we're going to give everybody a chance to talk, and just kind of talk about this great accomplishment, what it means to you, and how we go about moving forward. So to my right, I have sophomore Cooper Devlin. His topic was Global South and Women in Diplomacy. Welcome, Cooper. We've got
Thank you.
Yeah. We've got Andrew Schwenk to his right. His topic was Green Europe and population shifts in Africa. To his right, we have Shaun Rathman. His topic, artificial intelligence and NATO. How many of you guys know something about NATO? Some of you might, but I'm sure a lot of you don't. And then finally, at the end, we have Adam Cooke. His topics were sports and diplomacy in South Korea. And then at the very end here, we have Miss Heather Mills, who is the advisor and really just helping to guide this group through this journey here. So welcome, you guys. Glad to have you. Glad to be able to do this. So Cooper, we'll start with you. Talk to us about the competition. Talk to us about that, and talk to us about what made you individually want to get involved in something like the World Quest competition.
Personally, I've just always been really interested in things like modern events,
Mm-hmm.
news, politics, and that kind of drove me in from an introduction that I got in one of my classes to do a club like this.
Which class was that?
AP Human Geography, where that all of us were in, right?
At the same time, you were all in the same class at the same time.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And after that introduction, I kind of went, yeah, I feel like I could do that. I like public speaking, so I went and
You do.
I do.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
and I joined the club with a different advisor. And World Quest is part of the Model UN club.
Okay.
So that is one of the things that we do here.
Okay. Just a quick question, and this is for the folks out there. The Mall UN Club, is that what you said?
Model UN, yes.
Okay. Talk to them a little bit about what that club is. If you can
Um,
describe it a little bit.
yeah, it's pretty much a club where where we just kind of meet, and then we have two main things. We have World Quest, which is what we're talking about today,
Yep.
and then we have basically simulation things where we go to a local college, and then we are given kind of a role. Sometimes it is a country, and we have to debate, and we have to pretend like we're in the UN, or sometimes it's a little bit different. Sometimes you have to uh, pretend that you're like a fantasy anything, and it can be
Okay.
done outside of countries. So
All
if
right.
you're not just interested in that, you can still have fun here.
So let's go to your topics: Global South, women in diplomacy. Obviously, you guys. How do I say this without talking negatively about other student athletes? Right. Right. But you guys did pretty good. You took home the chip. So you must have been a beast. For you to win in the topic of Global South and women in diplomacy, what do you think made you so much better than your opponents? Was it the knowledge, or was it your delivery of the knowledge that you have?
Often it is partially your teammates and their knowledge that they go into it with without reading any articles. It is
Wow.
just what everybody already knows.
Pause. So it's a team sport, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, and that's good for people to know who may not know more about this academic sport. Okay, so let's go over to Andrew. Andrew, for you, I guess same questions. How did you get started? and what keeps you interested in competing?
Well, I joined this club last year because, Mali UN just stands out to me. I looked for a club where, I could go to these simulations and debate about stuff I was interested in. I've always been interested in social studies and, geopolitics
Mhm.
and all that stuff. And, this club just appealed to me. And, that same appeal is probably going to keep me in it for the rest of my high school career.
Great answer. So the follow-up question is, how do you deal with things that aren't topics that you want to debate about or topics that you might be uncomfortable debating about? Has that happened?
I don't necessarily think that's happened. I think most stuff here at Mali UN just stuff I've been interested about and stuff I'm not really uncomfortable talking about.
That's good. That's good. And the good thing about that is it gives you an opportunity to become more of a well-rounded individual.
Hmm.
When you can speak to different avenues in life.
Yeah.
Um, they say when you're in sales, former salesman, anyway, a long time ago, when you talk to people, you need to know a little bit about everything.
Yes.
And it just makes you more relatable and more knowledgeable. So that's good. Um, Another question for you. I guess what most surprised you about the competition that your team faced?
I mean, we were up against some pretty good schools, especially YMissing. YMissing has this huge Mali UN program, so huge that they hold their own event at their school.
Yeah.
So I was, I was surprised in the competition that, we were able to surpass them. No shade on YMissing. Love those people over there. You know,
Shout out the wire.
Shout out to YO.
Yeah, shout out the wire.
Mr. Dranby, you're amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was surprised that we, placed first because, I'm always thinking like these schools like Wilson, YO,
Hmm.
they're pretty good schools.
Yeah.
So, going into that competition, like I'm surprised that we were able to pull through.
Well, I mean, maybe you should stop being surprised because you guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're putting Exeter Township on the map,
Hmm.
and that's what it's all about, man. The
Yes.
light, the exposure, and specifically when you got the goods, man, you got to go out there and display it. So that's another reason why we're doing this. So we'll go over to you, Shaun, for a minute. So we'll let you answer part of the same questions, and I'll follow up. What got you started? What's keeping you in it?
I think it's a little different from the other kids because I've never really been like that big into history, but I've been friends with most of these guys for like the majority of my life,
Okay.
and they have always been big into history, so I kind of got drug into it.
It
And
happens, man. It happens.
yeah, but like once I was like in the club, I realized that you can learn a lot from history, and I kind of opened my eyes to that. Like, there's so much like interesting stories and like
Mhm.
topics that I think would be beneficial for kids and like myself and so many others to learn. And it got me invested, and that's kind of why I'm sticking around because I think that later in my life, knowing this information
Yeah.
and like having that greater understanding of like where we came from is important.
Wow. That's a phenomenal answer. And I guess you're starting to see why they're winning, right? It doesn't take long, and you just kind of see these guys begin to open up and be themselves and just be so articulate and informed about the topic at hand. Okay, so you're not a history guy. Everybody else is a history guy. I'm a history guy too, so you're kind of the odd man out. Miss Mills, are you a history lover too?
Technically, no, because I'm an English teacher, but
Okay.
I have a special place in my heart. History and current events and things like that.
Okay. All right. So, Sean, last question for you. Talk about and then I'll let all of you guys talk about it too, but talk about the environment, the intensity, the lack thereof. We kind of talked about game faces a little bit earlier. What what is that like at the World Quest competition? Because you're going against some ballers in there, I would imagine.
But yeah, I would completely agree. Like once you get into the actual building that you like the event is held in, it's just like a large conference room, and like you're in there with every other kid,
Yeah.
and it's pretty packed. There was about 15 teams and the four kids, so that's over like 60 kids as well as all the adults that are giving the questions out and the teachers and the coaches, and like sitting there well, surrounded by like your competition, it's a little bit like tense.
I could imagine.
Yeah. And then once it starts, like you can't talk to anybody else. You can't like look to anybody else for help. They take your phones.
Can you talk amongst each other?
Yeah, amongst each other, yes, or just as your team.
Okay.
And that's kind of where like you get your crutch to lean on. Because if you see a question and it's on one of your topics that you like were supposed to study and it's like you're just not getting it,
Yeah.
you can look to your friends and say, well, guys, I need help with this. Like any context clues that you can figure out. And usually we're able to all come to a consensus of an answer when one of us gets confused because like we can just use process of elimination and like I
Who's got the wackest answer?
yeah.
So look, I want to get to Adam, but I wanted to ask you this as I looked at your topics: artificial intelligence and NATO. What do you think people most underestimate about artificial intelligence and how it can help/harm the human population?
At this point, artificial intelligence is like I was like slippery slope. It's so new that we don't really know what it does yet or like what we can really do with it.
Mhm.
We can like replace certain jobs, and when saying that sounds scary because if you're replacing a job, that's one less worker that could be employed. But at the same time, the argument is, well, if we replace these people, we can make new jobs in the AI industry creating and working on different types of artificial intelligence that can then be utilized to do people's work more efficiently than they ever could. But at the same time, the question would be like those people who are being displaced, how can we get them to that point where we can employ them in AI? So people have been working on like educating certain workers in fields that will be replaced with AI.
Yep.
And educating them in how to like become active members of different forms of technology in different industries because they know that eventually that they'll be much needed in the AI and as well as the rest of the technology.
Exactly, and I guess it's an interesting topic because I know when I go to a place like a McDonald's or a Burger King or somewhere like that, I never go to the kiosk. I always go to the counter where there's a person to help me. And a lot of times, because I'm always talking, saying something, but I let them know I'm doing this because I want you to still be able to have a job. But to your point, being able to do all of our jobs more efficiently would be beneficial to human population. But you also got to think about what do we do with those people displaced? How can they earn a fair wage and set a standard of living? So good answer, guy. Good job. Adam, you up, buddy? You ready, man?
All right.
So, same thing. What got you started? What's keeping you motivated to keep going?
I knew about Model UN. I learned about it even before I entered the high school in 8th grade. And I came up knowing about the club, and I was like, wow, this seems really interesting to me.
Mhm.
I've been into history, geopolitics, the world, how countries interact, all that stuff for years now. So I really thought it'd be interesting knowing how to simulate things. And I joined last year, got a few guys to come along with me, and we've been able to grow such an awesome little group here in our club. So I'm happy about that. And I've just stayed and I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun. And I was elected the presidential role this year. So I've had a
Presidente.
yeah.
My God.
I've had a lot of fun with that. I love leading. I love being a leader. And I just love what we've built up. We've built up a winning group here, even if it's small. It's fun, it's interesting, and it's not something I see leaving anytime soon.
One thing that you said that kind of stuck out to me. You recruited,
Hmm.
right? You went out and you had to find minds and active bodies who want to participate. And this is also part of why this is important too. If you're watching this, you too can be a part of this winning tradition that's being built here at Exeter Township. So recruiting is important. So Adam, I asked the question, how hard was it or asked the question, how hard was it to recruit people? And what do you think your recruiting expectations are for next year or the next season? I would guess is there a season? When does it run from?
We start in September, October,
Okay.
and then we run through like May.
Okay.
Um, so
What would you like to see the numbers balloon to here? We've got 4 of you. No, there's more. These are just the 4 for this group. How
Yeah.
many in total?
We have around 9. There's been a bunch of people who showed up, but
Okay.
we have about 9 that consistently stay. So we'd like to get more people that are very actively involved that will show commitment, because we know that's not been something that's happening overly much. When we came in,
Mhm.
it was also, there were a few guys that may have not stuck around.
Okay.
But I know these few have, which has been awesome. We just want people that will show up and will
That's half the battle, right?
Yeah,
It's half
yeah.
the battle. It's half the battle.
People that will show up, have fun.
Yeah.
Will try to engage, really engage, and show their passion. So, good freshman class coming up next year. We'd love to show them, hey, we have a great group. We can win.
Mhm.
Join on with us, because this is such an awesome movement, club, everything here.
Do you think it's easier to recruit underclassmen as opposed to upperclassmen?
I think so. Mainly this year it was Ethan Tibbetts, who had done a lot of recruitment
Okay.
of the underclassmen, and there was a lot. A lot of them didn't stay, but we had a few, and it was awesome to see that a few could be passionate and have fun here. So we're looking to keep going with that, keep growing. So yeah.
Before we go, I mean, anybody who knows you knows this is a sports guy, so I wasn't surprised to see that his topics were sports and diplomacy and South Korea.
Mhm.
What is the biggest misconception about sports and the role that it plays in diplomacy between countries and nations?
It has a major effect, and I don't think a lot of people realize how countries not just culturally can use sports to
Mhm.
bind, but diplomatically, countries can be binded, resolve conflict, or some conflict even spurs out over sports. There's been wars over sports, say Central America, there's been wars, but there's been countries that refuse to acknowledge each other. They'll meet
Sure.
with each other, or say North South Korea, they play with each other at the Olympic Games. That's a huge sign internationally to going towards peace. So sports are something that's universal, and it's awesome to see how they can be utilized like that. So
Great answer. Let's give it over to Miss Mills. Miss Mills, glad to have you here and working with these group of students here, these student athletes, as I love to call them. When you first heard that, or started having interest in being a advisor for the World Quest competition, were you overwhelmed? Did you feel inundated? Were you just kind of like clueless? Did you know a little bit about it? Like, what were your first initial reactions?
Mostly clueless.
Mostly clueless.
However, I had 3 of these 4 in class.
Yeah.
So
She's had
I
mine too, so she's
yes.
making it rounds.
So I've heard them talking about the situation, that they were going to be losing an advisor, and even though I didn't know anything about the club, I knew there was a need for somebody to step into that role. So
Right.
they basically taught me everything
Wow.
about Model UN, about Academic World Quest, and they lead this club. I said earlier, I'm basically just the van driver. I'm going to get them to the competition, and then they're really doing all the work.
So that's a great take on it. And kudos to you for just kind of jumping in blind and just filling the need, filling the void. So you guys take a good look at that example, man. See a need, fill a need, and that's where it needs to be. If you're second guessing yourself, you're making the wrong decision usually. Just go ahead and go out and do it. So Miss Mills, you talked about their leadership and how they displayed it. As you watched them perform at the World Quest competition, I don't want to say how proud were you, because I know you were extremely proud, but it must be heartwarming to watch each of their individual qualities kind of show, specifically when they talk about their topics. Can you just talk to us a little bit what that was like for you to watch them go through it?
Well, what's interesting about the competition is that there's 10 rounds of competition.
10 rounds.
10 rounds. but you do not know where you rank after each round. In contrast to the other teams, like you
Okay.
can kind of tally your points internally, and you would come over and be like, "Oh, we got this many points in each round," but you don't know what the other teams are doing. So it requires a lot of fortitude for them to sort of just keep pushing through and keep cranking out those answers and working collaboratively, because you don't know if you've won until awards.
Wow.
So it was really interesting to watch that, because in sports, since we're making those parallels,
Yep.
it's very different. Like you know how you're performing, like
Scoreboards right there all the time,
minute by minute. And so this is a different setup, and I think it requires a different mindset of competition.
Yeah.
And it was really just a unique experience to watch them and see them dominate in that setting.
Dominate. So how do you say this without being too much of a sports bad guy? But how much did they beat the other teams by? Can we talk about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, so I can't recall the exact
But
point
would you
totals
say
off
it's
the
a
top
lot
of
to
my
a
head,
little
but
bit?
they were in first place by a solid window. Yeah, they had to have a
Nice.
tiebreaker for third, but they were solidly in the lead.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So so you had one event that was at Albright and the other that was in Washington D.C., right?
That'll be our national competition that's
That'll be
coming
the
up.
national.
Yes.
So that's the one that's coming up April 19th through April 21st.
Yes.
If people want to follow you guys or see it, is there a way that they can see it or just kind of follow you guys?
Give the plug for Instagram.
We have an Instagram. It's run by us. Exeter SHS Model UN.
Okay, say it one more time for the people.
At Exeter SHS Model UN. You can go
Okay.
follow us there. Check us out.
So so you guys will just have updates, or will there be is it streamed in any way, shape, or form?
There's no streams. It's mainly just updates. We have some reminders. We have some pictures of us. Just giving some information.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to Shaun. Shaun, let's talk about the research and the preparation that goes into competing in such an event like the World Quest competition. How did you begin to prepare, and what do you think you could have done better?
Well, just like for any important sports or like part of life, you have to think ahead of time and plan ahead of time.
Mhm.
So like once I got my topics, I knew that I had to start researching them like relatively early. So I started to brush up on my knowledge on both NATO and artificial intelligence, and as well as that, um, WorldQuest provides us with documents that we can look through, which they will make questions from.
Okay.
So there, we knew exactly like what topics were going to be asked about, like within our like subtopics.
Mhm.
So it was nice to be able to read over those documents, take notes on them, write up what we needed to know, and then go into the test and like into the competition and think like, okay, like I know the information that we're going to be asked. And along with that, there's a little bit of cramming. Like the night before, I was like, there was like a couple articles that were really long, and I was like, I don't want to read them. And then it was the night before, and I was like, well, I kind of have to, because if I don't read them, then I'm gonna like be letting my whole team down, and that's like that how that team aspect helps us, because I think that if it was just me alone, I would not have read them, and I don't think I would have done it. I wouldn't have done quite as well as I would have had done in my topics, but because like I felt motivated to like not let my team down, I made sure to read them and take good notes because I know how important that this is for them as well as myself.
Okay. So let's go. Let's go to you, Andrew. So let's just talk a little bit about, and Cooper and I talked about this when he first got here. Explain to people about geopolitical issues, what that means, I guess, and I guess try to relate it back to the World Quest competition and how you're debating against other teams on an array of different issues, if that makes sense.
So yeah, like geopolitics ties a lot into academic world quests. Most of the questions are about geopolitical issues around the world,
Okay.
and going into the competition and researching these articles really like furthers your knowledge on like what's going on in the world right now.
That's right.
We had articles on countries like South Korea. Like every single year in these competitions, there's always a country in focus. I remember last year's was Ethiopia, This year's was South Korea. So, researching and competing in this, competition really just gives you a perspective on what's going on in the world right now, and what's our world like? Like, what's politics like?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Cooper, I want you to give the folks the example we talked about earlier when we talked about your topic, women in diplomacy. And do you kind of remember the answer that you gave me?
With the churches.
Yeah. Just kind of go through that, and just to give people a better idea of the broad range of geopolitical topics that come up.
So the topic women in diplomacy was mostly focusing on women in what we call track 2 diplomacy, which is basically diplomacy that doesn't happen on the exact level of governments or the UN or NATO.
Mhm.
It's more local. So a lot of these women were organizing strikes in Malaysia. They were slowing down wars. They were almost causing ceasefires in many places. They were creating solid ground on many of these issues. And it just really impacts the countries that they are doing this in, while not having as much power as a lot of men in straight government issues.
So what you see here is just kind of the deeper level thinking about real world issues that this team is attacking, researching, and beating out other schools in competition, and just looking good while doing it. I'll add that about you, gentlemen. You guys look good doing it. So make sure you get plenty of pictures as this goes back around. Let's go back to Miss Mills before we get out of here. Miss Mills, the question for you now is, what else should the people know about the World Quest competition as it relates to just sport in general?
So I guess our local competition, which was really a regional competition,
Okay.
it was just the first step. And as we head into the national competition, these guys are going to be facing teams from all over the country. As we've begun the early planning stages, there are schools coming from as far away as Hawaii. So
Wow.
it's going to be a really unique opportunity for them to see how they measure up to schools from all over, which is very much like sports on
Yeah.
our national stage. And what's also unique about our competition weekend is that they'll also have the opportunity to hear some diplomats speak, to make some college connections. There's going to be representatives from colleges there. So again, like we're making that analogy to sports. It's almost like a recruitment event, that they get to make some
Wow.
of those connections and really get a sense of what's out there for people who are experts in their field, because they really are experts in their field, and it's going to open a lot of doors for them in the future.
Let's talk about the format of the event or of the competition, what that looks like for you guys, and maybe we'll end it with talking about the quote unquote underdog mentality, not coming from one of the larger schools that has a large draw of students to compete in this type of event. So, Ms. Mills, I'll let you go first, and then we'll just kick the mic around.
So I think I touched on earlier that there are 10 rounds of
10
competition,
rounds.
and each round is geared towards one of those topics that you mentioned that each of them sort of assign to themselves.
Okay.
And then there are additional questions about current events, so they just need to sort of know current events. And another subtopic called Great Decisions, which this year was about the High Seas Treaty and just the sort of history of the Middle East and politics in the Middle East. So they all had to be well versed in that. And then each round has 10 questions. And so they get to collaborate together on their answers, 45 seconds to answer a question. So it is a
45 seconds. Is that
Yep.
enough time?
Sometimes.
And then the winner is the team that has scored the most points. There are sometimes tiebreaker rounds if teams are even at the end.
Okay.
And when you go into that, you don't know if you're part of the tiebreaker.
Wow.
So it is a complete mystery until the very end.
To the very end. So
Mhm.
pins and needles the entire
Yep.
time. Let's go to you, Adam. We'll work our way back around. Did you feel like Exeter was an underdog coming into this competition?
A bit. I thought we had a good chance, but I didn't think we were the top dog coming into this. I knew Governor Mifflin, really good team. They won last 2 years, and they had a team. Their second place team I knew was staying at the high school, so I knew
Okay.
they were gonna stay competitive. Why Missing was not at the event last year, so I knew they would. We knew they would also stay competitive. Wilson, another great team, obviously, um, but it was just very stressful knowing there was a good amount of competition, and we're just a bunch of sophomores from a team who, we struggled to get an eighth person to come along to the event for
Yeah.
the second team. So we did see ourselves a little under, but we wanted to win. We wanted to set a mark for Exeter, win our first ever event here because it's all been really dominated by a select few teams.
Wow.
So
So you just basically broke the mold, and like I said earlier, put Exeter on the map.
yeah,
Let's go. So, Shaun, now you're not an underdog anymore. Spotlight's on you guys, right? Really, it is. Spotlight's on you. You went and you did what people thought that you couldn't do. David slayed Goliath, and now the light's on you. What do you guys have to do as a unit, as a team, to push forward and excel in this event that's coming up April 19th through the 21st?
Now that we know that we made it to nationals, we kind of really have to like begin to study even more what we already had been studying. Because like for my note taking, I took some brief notes, like not maybe the most in-depth possible. I definitely will gonna read over all my articles again on like go deeper into all my topics, do even more research on specific treaties and specific new bills and laws that have been created for artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And I really need to focus as well as everyone else on like getting our topics completely and 100% down, because if we can get these topics down pat and like completely understood, and we can enter this competition with like 100% logical understanding of what we need to do, then we should have no trouble. But like if we don't continue to study and work as hard as we have worked to at least to even win regionals,
That's right.
then we won't get anywhere at the national competition because we didn't put the work in.
You got to put the work in. Andrew, let's go to you. What do you have to do to get better and help the team?
Time management. That's what I gotta
Time
say.
management. Wow.
You know,
Do we talk about that a lot in school? Time management.
we talk about that a lot. A lot of people on this team are involved with a lot of stuff. Me, for an example, I'm involved with a lot of music stuff, so I gotta put time out of my day to go to events, go to practices and stuff, and that along with homework and stuff. So academic world quest really comes down to how much time you give yourself to put the work in and study for these articles. And if you manage your time really well, you'll do very good.
Let's go to Cooper. Cooper, let's just piggyback off of time management because I thought that was just a great response. Talk to me about what sacrifices you've made as a result of trying to have better time management to really be in a position to win.
At times I kind of had to just kind of push certain homework assignments back into a corner.
That's not the
Not-
answer we wanted.
not
Cooper. Come
not
on, man.
I always get it done. But
Okay.
if I go, all right, I can really focus on, if I focus on this first,
Yeah.
then I can really get to the next thing first.
So let's call it prioritizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
Yes.
maybe call it prioritizing things. And all right, cool. Man. All right, Cooper. Last question, and anybody who wants to take it. What else should the world know about the World Quest competition? Whoever wants to take it.
I mean, the only thing that I would say is that like
And you're talking to the world.
Yeah.
The world watches Go
All
Ahead
right.
Media Group.
the only thing I want to say is that like it's not as bad as you might think, because some is like, oh, it's just boring taking a test. But once you really like start to look at like history or current events or just like politics in general, it becomes interesting. Things that aren't interesting maybe at first glance or judging a book by its cover, like once you really get into it, like you can realize that it's so important and like a part of your everyday life that it's something that I think every student, adult, individual who's just living life needs to know and understand. Because without understanding of geopolitics, you don't really understand who you are as a person because you don't know where you came from.
Wow. Wow. Spoken with passion and conviction. There's not really much else to say after that. Any of you guys want to take a shot at that? Go ahead, take a shot.
It's just like you said, something that everyone should understand, and it allows you to compete. It allows you to have fun. It allows you to make friends. It allows you to build up a sense of community or group or compete even. I mean, I don't play a sport. I haven't for years, but I felt like I was chasing for that chip, and that's just an awesome feeling that you get to go out there. You get to go against other kids from other schools and you get to put out your best. You have to put in the work for it.
Wow.
And it's awesome seeing what can pay off and understanding things better. It just makes you a better person, makes you a better competitor, makes you a better thinker. And it's just a really awesome opportunity. And I'm glad I can do this with so many different guys with me.
Well, to sum it up, it sounds like it feels good to be an academic athlete. So we encourage the rest of you. If you haven't tried it yet, reach out. What's the Instagram?
Exeter SHS Model UN. Go follow us.
Go follow them. So for Cooper Devlin, Andrew Schwenk, Shaun Rathman, right? Rathman, Adam Cooke, and also Miss Heather Mills, advisor. My name is Nate Govan. You're watching Govan Media Group. Thanks for tuning in. Support the kids. This is why we do it. Talk to y'all next time.